So last weekend I was on a trip to London, and this weekend I'm on a trip to Birmingham. So seeing as I don't have a whole lot of time this week, I figured I might just go through what different technology I take with me on holidays. The stuff I used to take with me is largely the same, except I used to take like an entire laptop and everything, and now I just don't have to because I have my Steam Deck instead. I always plan to like play loads of games and stuff while I'm away, and I never do. The only thing I played while I was away this time was Final Fantasy XIV, just because I was busy all the rest of the time. Sometimes I'll take like a keyboard and mouse with me as well, but especially for what I'm doing at the moment, it was more relevant when I was doing dungeons. Like when I was doing my dailies, it mattered, but now because I'm just doing island stuff, or like if I'm doing gathering or stuff, I don't need a mouse and keyboard for that, so I don't even bother taking those. But I do have this nice little 3D printed stand that I made for myself, and that makes it a lot easier as well. This has like entirely replaced taking a laptop with me, because I used to take a laptop so I could watch videos and stuff as well, but I just watch them on my Steam Deck now, so I have no need. To go with my Steam Deck, I take a couple of different pairs of headphones. My first pair is just a pair of Razer Krakens. I mostly just take these because they're really comfortable, if I'm being honest. They're not the best pair. They've got a microphone that I have literally never used, but I have a scaffold piercing, and while I was never a big fan of wearing over-ear headphones anyway, since getting the scaffold piercing it's even worse. But even without the piercing they were the most comfortable, but now with the piercing they're like the only pair I found that don't like crush my ears to the point where it hurt, where it like drives the piercing into my head basically. And especially because I've got my glasses on all the time, so I have to be careful of that even more. Yeah, they're not the best sounding and they're not necessarily the best quality. Like I've got a few pairs of these and this pair's a little bit ripped. I've got another pair, well my wife's got a pair, and they're like totally destroyed on the headband. But they're just my favourite pair of over-ear headphones. Because I also take a small pair of bone conduction headphones. Now I've spoken about these before because earlier in the year I mentioned that I wasn't able to hear for a while and that I had these bone conduction headphones, which meant I could still do stuff, and these are what I used for that. They're really good. They were actually a Christmas gift from my wife last year, but I ended up stealing them instead. And they like sound decent, but it's more that I can like still hear everything else even with these on, and that really helps a lot of the time because like you can be having a conversation and still listening to stuff at the same time. My only issue is that the band is like a hard band and it's weirdly big. Like these are the small pair and they were still really big, and it means that there's like an inch, maybe 2 inches, just at the back of your head of like space between the back of your head and the band, so you can't like sit back with them on, which is a little bit frustrating over time. It's more of a problem at night obviously, but besides that I wear these pretty comfortably for like hours at a time. The next thing I take with me is a little travel keyboard. I got this one particularly because it's a keyboard and mouse combination unit, which is really nice. You can get a lot of different versions of these. You can get gamepad shaped ones, but then I don't like the keyboard, or the mouse honestly, I just don't like them at all. Whereas this one is basically just a normal keyboard with a little trackpad on the side, and I really like the layout of these, and you couldn't see it in the shots that I took, but it does actually have kind of RGB backlighting. It's one colour each time, so I just have it on red all the time. And it's got like a little space in the back to store the dongle that you need for them, and it just has a cable built in that you plug in when you need to charge it. It's just a really good little keyboard, and I think it was only like £10 or something. So I've had this for a few years now and I use it a lot. Even outside of travelling, I actually use this at home a lot. I use it for controlling one of my other computers. When we're away especially, it means that I can put my Steam Deck on one side of the room like plugged into the TV and control this from the other side so we can watch videos and stuff. The next thing I take with me is a box of cables. I'm not going to go through all these in huge detail. The thing that gets the most usage probably is the USB-C dongle, because I use that for my Steam Deck. I got this one particularly because I had one before this and I could put SD cards and stuff in it, but I don't use that, but it didn't have an Ethernet port, and now this one does. So I replaced it with this and it's much nicer. So this one does 2 USB, a HDMI and an Ethernet, which is all I need. Then I've got a couple of USB-C cables, a HDMI cable. I recently got this like really nice little flat Ethernet cable, which I replaced a massive one that I took with me, and the nice little flat one's way more useful. I've got the charger for a thing that I'm going to talk about later. I've got the little Steam Deck 3D printed stand that I talked about before, and then I've got a multi-port charging plug. I used to have a different version of this plug that was like less powerful, and it was still good, but I got it for a trip, took it on the trip, decided it wasn't powerful enough, returned it and got the more powerful version. So this is 100 watts and the other one was 65, and from that we can charge both our phones and the Steam Deck at the same time and still have a port left over and have like no issues with it. So it's like really useful for us. That has cut down the amount of stuff we take with us drastically. I used to take an extension cable on trips and all of the individual chargers we need and then plug all the chargers into the extension and then plug that extension into the wall so that we could charge all of the stuff in one place, and all of that got replaced by this one brick. It's just way better. It's way more convenient for the both of us. The last thing I take is actually the newest thing I've got, and it's a little travel router. The way it works, well, the way we used it, was essentially just as like a repeater for the hotel Wi-Fi, and one of the reasons for that is because at the hotel, you can pay for Wi-Fi at the hotel, but you can only have 2 devices logged into it ever. So what you do instead is you can set up this travel router, and sometimes it will just work. Sometimes there's some messing about to do. What I had to do is I had to log into the Wi-Fi on my Steam Deck, and then logged into this travel router, and then cloned the MAC address. And that means that to the hotel, this router now appears as the Steam Deck, and then every other device that we had taken with us could now connect to this little router instead, and it would function as the Wi-Fi for the entire weekend. It took me about 20 minutes to set it up, mostly because it was the first time I'd ever done it. When I first bought it, I wasn't sure how much use I'd have for it, and then when things didn't go quite right at the start, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just send it back. But basically, the second I got it working after that, I was like, no, I'll keep it forever. It's actually really good. And that's what the little charger was for before, because this is also runs off USB-C. I wouldn't even have to take that charger with me if I didn't want to. Next time I might not, and I'll just use the charging brick that I showed you earlier. That would make the entire set like even more compact. As it is, this is what I currently take to trips with me. Honestly, I think for my next trip I probably won't take the Krakens, because I didn't even use them this time. I used the Open Shokz, but I didn't use the Krakens at all. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I take with me on a trip, so I hope someone finds this useful. Thanks for watching.
Special thanks to my patrons, Justin Wood, Hobbs and Koopy Vegeta. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, check out my TikTok and Twitter at Holden Gatsby, and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Holden Gatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to all of my channels. If you want more, you can watch my last video now, but if not, then thanks for sticking around.